welcome to episode 2 of So Where To Next, the travel podcast with Corie and Clinton.
With Corie and Clinton.
Yay.
Yay,
You're
us.
Corie.
I am indeed, yes.
No,
and you are
that
Clinton.
That makes me Clinton.
That makes you Clinton.
Hey.
Yes. Hi, Clinton.
Good evening.
I just noticed you have a lot more bourbon in your glass than I do. And I think that's
lies.
I think that's because either I drank more than you did or you poured more for you, which I think
I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can neither confirm nor deny those allegations.
That's got it. This is unfairness. Is that a word? It is now.
It is now.
So, hi, friends.
How's
Today, we're going to talk about weekend road warrioring.
Yes.
Another word I just made up. So as I got to kind of making some notes about this particular podcast and thinking through how we go about getting started, choosing where we are going on what I'm calling a short-term destination.
Okay.
Meaning one night.
Maybe 2.
Maybe just a day.
Yeah.
Maybe a whole weekend. Maybe a long weekend. Short-term destination. Let's say 3-4 nights or less. Actually, no, not 4 nights. That's long term.
Yeah.
2 nights.
That's more than
2
a long
nights.
weekend.
2 nights is short term. Let's say 2
Okay.
nights. So the reason that we named this podcast So Where To Next is because that's the question that we get most frequently from people. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how we choose destinations, right?
Yeah.
That's how we choose destinations. So
And this is always usually the most fun part of the whole experience is deciding where to go. You know, we've been known to randomly point at a map, and we've put a handful of destinations into a randomizer app and let it choose for us. We find inspiration on Instagram or wherever, or we just see, walk by a calendar in Barnes & Noble that has a pretty picture of somewhere and who knows where. And we're like, that's really pretty. We need to plan a trip there. And sure enough, there's a pin in Google Maps and then the wheels are turning.
That's right. So as fun as being spontaneous is, though, and it can be fun. It can be super fun. Planning is important if you want to make the most of the time that you have while you're wherever you go.
And Corie's the planner in this pair.
No, you're a planner too. You can't claim that you're not a planner. You are a planner too. So there are some things. So we have 5 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Actually, way more than 5 things, but we're going to start with 5 things to consider when you are deciding what your next adventure is going to be. So we're kind of hoping that maybe we will take you all on a journey with us, on a virtual journey through Cyberland via this podcast toward planning your next exciting adventure. So here's 5 questions. And we're going to talk about these questions. Ready?
All right.
Here we go. Okay. These things you should consider when you're making a choice on where to go next. Number 1, we need a drum roll.
Uno. Drum roll.
I can't drum roll. How long do you have? Do you have a day? You're going for an afternoon, let's say. You're leaving in the morning, coming back in the evening. You're going somewhere for the day. Mm-hmm. Do you have one night?
Yeah.
So let's say you're going for a weekend then. You go up on a Saturday, let's say, stay the night, come back Sunday.
Right.
Or the way we like to do it is we go up on Friday and stay 2 nights and then come back on Sunday. So we have a little bit more time. Or my personal favorite, recently we did this. We went down to the beach for 3 nights? Mm-hmm. 3 nights.
3 nights.
But we left the night before we checked into our Airbnb, and we drove down and stayed halfway and then drove the other halfway so that we'd have another full day at our destination to enjoy our destination before we checked into the Airbnb.
Right.
Because a lot of places, hotels, Airbnbs and such, you have to check in
like
in the
3 or
evenings,
4.
3, 4. Yeah. So, that's a whole day you could have in there if you left early. So number 1 is, how long do you have? Number 2, why are you going? Why are you going on this trip? So are you going just because you want to explore somewhere new, or are you going because you're there for something else? Like you're going on a work trip that takes you someplace and you get to explore an area, or
are you going to visit friends or family in a new town, or a town that you've been to before? Or is it something specific? Like let's say there's an Ansel Adams exhibit at the Cincinnati Art Museum that eventually we will plan a trip to go to. So is there a specific reason for the destination, or, is there just somewhere that you've always wanted to go and you haven't been, and you just want to like scope it out for maybe a long-term vacation or trip or something?
Yeah. Or for us, here's an example. Like we go to visit our kid at college. So maybe there's an event there or something going on. Or like once we went to a music festival. So the music festival was our destination. So that's what's taking us there.
Right.
And that's where we're going to spend most of our time while we are there, but we have other time to maybe scope out a couple of restaurants, or to go have breakfast someplace before we leave, or, find a place to stay, or that's, in proximity to wherever we're going to be. So that is something that's really important to consider, is the reason why you're going. So if you're just going for a weekend to explore, go somewhere new, or maybe even go to a city where you've been before and you want to explore it in ways you never have before, or something like that. It is important to think, okay, how much actual time do I have to spend at this place? Do I have a day to go explore downtown, or do I have a day to go to a museum, or do I have a day to go to the zoo, or do I have a day to go do whatever it is that you like to do? Whereas if you're just passing through, maybe you just have enough time to check out a cool restaurant or a cute little downtown area or something like that. So we've done all of those combinations, literally all of those, from picking a rando place off the map in Tennessee and having one of the best weekends we've ever had in the most random place in the world.
Right.
We've planned around music festivals, or visiting people, or going places for work, or whatever. We've done all that.
Yeah.
So it is kind of important to think, okay, how long do I have? What's the purpose of my trip someplace? Because you really can make even a work trip a destination. Like I had a work trip to a place that, I was there primarily for work, but I did get to check out a couple of cool local restaurants while I was there. And I got to go to a distillery while I was there, to just go to their shop and buy some bourbon and bring it home. So, that was cool for me, that I got to stop at a couple of distilleries on my way home because they happened to be in that area. So, of course, we're in Kentucky, bourbon capital of the world. So you'll hear us talk about bourbon a lot. But to me, that's a cool destination. Now, to you, our dear listeners, you might have something else that you think is cool that you would want to go check out. Like, I don't know, maybe you're into hunting and you want to go check out something to do with that. I don't know. But, just pick whatever it is you're into, comic book shop or whatever, it could be anything that you're into that this area might have. So number 3, we're on 3 now.
We're on 3?
Yep. What's number 3, Clinton?
You figure out your budget.
Yes.
So that's certainly an important part of travel, because unless you have your own Sprinter van, you're going to incur a cost everywhere you go. And so even, like you said, even weekend trips can get expensive. When you start considering your accommodation, your food, gas, if you go shopping, gift stores, entry fees for places. If you national park hop like we do sometimes, you either have to, pay the entry fee at each individual park, or you get the U.S. Parks pass, and, it's a one-time fee, but then you get entry to just about every national park and national monument, which is super cool. And then, whatever, you're there for could have could incur a charge as well.
I think a thing a lot of people don't think about is parking.
Yeah.
So if you're staying at a hotel, let's say in a downtown area is a very good example of this. What's the parking situation? Are you going to have to pay $25 a day, or can you self-park at a lot? But does that mean you're going to have to walk? Like what, you have to take those things into consideration, because a lot of people don't really think about all the extra charges that come along with certain types of accommodations or where you're going. Like, are you going to need to Uber from the airport somewhere, or are you going to need to Uber while you're there, or ride share? Uber's not the only ride share. So there are multiples. We support them all. But how are you planning on getting around when you're there? Because that can add up pretty quick, depending on how far you are from wherever you're going.
And then also depending on maybe what you're planning to do. If you don't have a lot planned, then maybe you can splurge on a nicer accommodation. We try to always find the middle to low end on the budget price when we do Airbnb or VRBO or hotels.com or whatever, and then decide if it doesn't quite suit our needs, then we bump up a little bit depending on what your itinerary is for the weekend. If you maybe don't have a heavy shopping budget, or you're not going to be driving around very much, then, if you're there mainly just to relax and chill, then maybe you can splurge a little bit more on your accommodation and have a nicer stay if that's the primary reason. If you just need a digital detox weekend and just need to spa and hang out and unplug for a bit, then, those kind of options are also available.
Yeah, we've done everything from boutique hotels in large cities, and we have done, camping, of course, which is a whole nother episode. That'll be our next episode. But we've done where we're like literally sleeping in our car, or camping, sleeping on the ground, which is not my favorite, as everyone knows. But we've stayed in really neat, artsy, hotels. We've stayed in really cool Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts in local areas that are super cool. I tend, especially if we're traveling with the family, we've got 2 teenagers, and if we're traveling with them, I tend to choose places where ideally either they have their own room and we have our own room, or they each have their own room if it's affordable,
and their own bathroom. Yeah, because that's very, very important. But it really does depend. Again, go back and think about what is the purpose of your travel and how long are you there, and does it matter? Like, for example, we just stayed in just a plain old run of the mill off the interstate hotel recently when we were driving down to our long weekend, because we didn't need a fancy place to stay. We just needed a bed and a shower on our way from point A to point B. We weren't getting there until really late at night, so it didn't matter how fancy it was. Right. So as soon as we got there, we went to bed, and then we woke up and we had a mediocre cup of coffee. A really terrible cup of coffee. Yeah. So, now for some people, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day about how, I love hotel breakfast. Like, okay, some people really dig that. I personally do not dig budget hotel breakfast, but I can eat a cup of yogurt with the best of them, but that's right. But but the rest of that is, I think it just sort of depends on what you're into and if you care or not. A lot of people don't care. Right. Seriously. Like, I'm actually not really a breakfast person. So to me, it doesn't really matter because I'm not even hungry until like lunch. So, but anyway, that kind of stuff matters to people, and when you get to hotels, you start talking about, places to stay, which I kind of feel like we're skipping forward a little bit, but that's where there's so many more questions that come into accommodation. So before I jump forward to that, let's jump back into our numbers. So that was actually number three, which was our budget. So the next one is number 4 is how far are you willing to drive? Yeah. Or are you going to fly somewhere? Like, let's say you happen to be one of the lucky souls that gets the $59 tickets on a certain airline, and which I don't know about anybody else, but that doesn't ever seem to work out for us. But, let's say you get really extra affordable airline tickets and you're able to spend some time
in an area. So we went a couple of years ago to a friend's wedding, and we got great deal on airline tickets. We happened to find ourselves in an area that together we'd never been, and we were able to explore some really cool stuff while we were there because independent of the wedding that we went to, we had a day or two.
Sure.
So, and we were able to, we stayed in a really cool place. We explored a really cute little town. We were able to go do some really neat kind of kitschy stuff.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, Texas, no less.
Yeah.
Had the best fried black beans we've ever had.
Like the best refried beans ever. Oh my God. Yeah. We're still talking about them. And I've been trying to replicate those refried beans ever since. And I've discovered the secret. You want to know what it is?
Straight lard.
It's lard. Lard.
So also for radius is typically we like to stay within about 100 miles radius from Bowling Green if we are just going for the weekend. And so, you can kind of just draw a little circle around wherever you are and, guesstimate, an hour and a half, 2 hour drive radius. And then to start really poking around and seeing, what's in that area. Or if you're traveling longer, then, find your halfway point like Corie was just talking about and, crash and then get up and go the next morning. And that way you arrive at your destination that much earlier.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not necessarily the road warrior that I once was. I lived in Colorado for a long time, and we would make that drive 22 hours back and forth from Tennessee to Colorado all the time. I cannot do that anymore. That is definitely not my bag. So I think if you're driving, 100 miles is a good rule of thumb because you can literally Google what's 100 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And it will give you a list of places. And mostly it's going to be big cities, but you can draw a circle around, AI will do it for you anymore. Just draw a circle around where you live and start looking within that circle. If you're just looking for a random destination, which I would 1,000% encourage. Mm-hmm. I know that we would totally encourage people to pick a random small town in your state and go check it out. Start looking at, start looking at that place. And which leads me into number five, is what kind of weekend do you want to have? Are you an outdoorsy, adventure-y type person like Clinton?
Yes.
Or are you into relaxing or learning something new, like you're a museum person, or you want to go take a tour of something, or you want to go see a play or go to a museum, or you want to learn about something you didn't know about before, or
you want a food tour? Like
me. That's what I would want. Let's go check out restaurants, or let's go check out craft cocktails that are supposedly really good over here. Or, most major cities have breweries and distilleries, and I find that fascinating. So I really like to go to those. But, if you don't drink, that's okay. But, there's plenty of things to do. You would be surprised, there was a small city that we went to once that was known for its local theater, had we maybe planned a little differently, we could have been there when there was a show. We could have checked that out, so all of these things are sort of at your fingertips. So let's say you have these answers now, how long I'm going, the reason that I'm going, what my budget is, and how far I'm willing to go, how far I'm willing to drive, and what kind of weekend I want to have. So now you have to decide where to stay. So this is typically the first thing that once we have our dates nailed down and our destination nailed down and we know where we want to go, that's when we start thinking about, okay, where are we staying?
Yeah.
And typically that can tend to revolve around what we want to do when we're there. Right. So
proximity to our ideal destination.
Yeah, because you don't want to be driving forever to get wherever. Although we've done that. Let's say Asheville is a great example. We love Asheville. And we hope that the folks in Asheville are recovering, and we hope that you'll support their local businesses to help those folks recover. But Asheville is, in fact, one of our favorite places to go. And we have a lot of favorite destinations there. And when we go, we stay in an Airbnb in neighborhoods. And it's really cool to stay where the locals live because it's quiet and it's safe and there's parking and it's typically pretty close to everything. But you do have to drive for a little clip if you want to get up to the Blue Ridge Mountains or if you want to go downtown.
Right.
And if you do go downtown, there's a possibility you might have to pay to park somewhere or whatever. So I'm just using that as an example. And that's a pretty average example. If you do choose to stay at an Airbnb or a VRBO in a residential area, wherever you travel. We just did this also in Sedona, in Arizona. We stayed in a residential area in a really cool Airbnb that was absolutely perfect for us because it was really kind of kitschy and zen. And, it was just a neat little place, but it was
also pretty not right really in the middle of everything, but just close enough that, you didn't have crazy traffic getting to and from everywhere, but you were just kind of away from, I guess if you can say that Sedona has hustle and bustle, it's certainly busy. A
little, but, in certain parts.
It was away from, the main business and shopping district that we actually got to, relax a little bit and sit out on the patio and watch the stars or whatever.
And we saw javelinas up close.
I know, we almost ran over one.
If you know what that is, javelina is like a pig type situation that was hanging out in a neighborhood. Like, wow, we got to see one of those. So where to stay? I mean, we like to choose personally. Okay. I think it adds a lot of character to choose local all the time if you can. And if it fits in with your budget. So choose a local bed and breakfast, choose a local hotel, choose something that's locally owned and not a chain. If you can help it. Although there's nothing wrong with chains. We love chains. We've stayed at plenty of them. We stay at them a lot. But I like the character that comes along with the local, people that you meet that run these bed and breakfasts that you end up having conversations with. I mean, I can't remember where we were. I had a conversation with one of the bed and breakfast owners about, we were talking about gardening. I can't remember what it was.
Probably in...
Was it in New Mexico, maybe?
It was in New Mexico, like near Shiprock.
I wanted to know how to grow something that they had in their beautiful garden outside. And so I ended up sitting there talking to them about gardening
Farmington, New Mexico.
Yes, that's where it was.
In the little Airbnb, the little White House. It was awesome.
So, I mean, just like some of these places are just neat and they add a lot of character to whatever your adventure is. It's like you could be going for whatever, but if you're staying in a neat place and you end up having a conversation with somebody cool and, and it just sort of enriches the experience, I think. But if you don't have a whole lot of time, as I mentioned before, you don't have to stay somewhere elaborate if you're not there for long. If the reason that you are there takes you outside of that hotel or you're only in for a night, just book whatever. Get yourself a place that meets your expectations for what you like when you stay somewhere and that can accommodate your needs. Like, for example, we have a no down family. So we have to make sure that anywhere we stay can accommodate that we can't have, because of allergies, down pillows or blankets. And a lot of places don't have synthetic pillows and blankets. I mean, it's one of the things that we have to consider when we stay places. So a lot of places can accommodate allergies, but not everybody can. So if that's important to you, that's important to investigate before you go. But really, I mean, proximity to me, I think is probably the most important thing on where to stay. And really everywhere we ever stayed is super affordable. Like we don't stay in big, crazy places. I know there are a lot of points warriors out there that really like to, you collect your mileage, you collect your points or whatever. And that's what really determines where you stay. I was talking to someone the other night who said, I got to get my Marriott points. So I'm staying over here. Like, okay, that's cool. I have hotels.com points. So I can stay anywhere because I like the versatility. So we use hotels.com is our preference just because I've used them for years and years and years. And it just, you're able to have a little more versatility sometimes in the types of places that you stay.
Right.
Let's see. Parking. I think we've already talked about that. It really can add a lot of money to your stay. Plus, particularly myself as a woman, if I'm ever traveling alone, I want to be sure that I've got the parking situation figured out. I used to travel for work quite a bit. as much as I feel like I could kick somebody's ass if I needed to, or run really fast if adrenaline allowed me to do so, I'd rather not put myself in a situation where I would have to, schlep my stuff from a parking garage into a lobby of a hotel.
Yeah, for sure.
So, unfortunately, the world we live in, that's just one of the things that some people have to worry about. So, but then another really important thing I think is when is check-in and when is check-out.
Right.
Because that matters. Like for us, we usually check out pretty early because we're like ready to go on to the next destination, wherever we're not typically people that hang out in a hotel for a long time, unless the kids are with us. Breakfast matters to some people. It doesn't matter to others. If there's an on-site restaurant or one nearby, that matters to some people.
Yeah.
It is nice if you're a breakfast person to have at least something, because I'm kind of weirded out by Keurigs in hotel rooms. I am. I just feel like people dump their personal water bottle in there and what they're like spitting it and stuff. I know. Am I weird?
No.
I mean,
no, it's
seriously.
It's totally valid.
I know. I take our own water. Every time we go, I fill up a growler full of water. And if we're on a road trip, we have our own water. So I'm not worried about whether or not they left a bottle of water in the room. We've got one. But I don't make coffee in the room. No, unless it's like, no, I don't do that either. It was like, unless it's a coffee pot, but I don't do that either. So no, we will go get coffee somewhere.
We like to find the local coffee shop and the local donut shop if there is one. And pretty much our morning routine when we're on trips is find a little coffee, little local coffee, little local donuts, or,
we've been to some cool coffee shops too.
The best little diner in the town. You look up Google reviews or Yelp reviews and find out what's the best little diner for your greasy spoon breakfast or whatever. And we typically try to do that as well, because that just is fun. You get the character and the flavor of this town that you're staying in.
That's absolutely true. Cool. I mean, I had a guy I can't remember if we were in Arizona or New Mexico. I think we're in Arizona still. And I asked this guy at a coffee shop to show me how to make their Mexican hot chocolate, which was crazy good and spicy and awesome and had all kinds of red chili in it. And I was like, how do you make it? Actually, it was a mocha because it had coffee in it. And I was like, show me how you made that. And he did. And he told me where he got his spices from and everything, which was also very cool because that's something that I'm into. Most people would be like, leave him alone. He's making coffee for people. Like, no, I actually want to know how he made that because I don't live here and I want to go home and be able to make that when I get home.
So the second part, what we do while we're there, is how do you choose what to do while you're there? So you've kind of got the general idea, which is why you chose your location. So now you get to narrow down and pinpoint what you actually want to do. And we like to check out the town's social media or the region's social media, their tourism websites, and learn about, what makes that area unique, that is a unique draw that's just theirs. And we like to hop on the Facebook groups and see what's going on and what the locals really like and, what they're proud of. And then we'll put it out like on Facebook or wherever and say, do we know anybody that's been to X, Y, and Z place? And sometimes locations come up in conversations with people because we know several folks that do travel extensively. And so we pick their brain for location ideas and they do the same with us. We're like, okay, well, we're thinking about going here. What did you think of, East Tennessee? We're like, oh, well, X blah, 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 blah. We loved all this great stuff. And then travel specific websites like Road Trippers, Travel Advisor, Viator, or, any of the host of other tons of areas that are good.
Even actually YouTube is a really good resource as well. I think YouTube is also pretty cool. I mean, you don't want to ruin your trip experience. I mean, I've gone to YouTube or TripAdvisor to figure out what is the least populated beach to go to at areas that we go to, because I don't like really busy beaches. And I know that there are less populated beaches that exist. And Clinton, actually on our most recent trip, found where'd you find the beach that we went to? He found it somewhere. He found it somewhere. Yeah, just Googling like least populated beach, and he found one, and it was perfect, and there were not a ton of people, and it was quiet, and it was clean, and it wasn't like, one of the public beach access places. It was a little off the beaten path.
I may have been on like the city parks website or something, and you have all the questions that Google asks for what's popular beaches in, Panhandle of Florida. And, we're there. And, and I found that one. And it's like, yeah, it's on the Air Force Base and you just sign up for a free permit and you're good to go. So.
Yeah. And it was perfect. So, I mean, a lot of times TripAdvisor reviews will get you so far. Like I've used them a lot on cruises also, just to hear people talk about the different types of staterooms that they stayed in or, and just kind of get people's opinions before you make your decision so that you can, it's kind of tough. I think once you see the same comment about a place three times,
then
that's kind of my rule of thumb. Like the bed in this Airbnb sucks. And if you see that three times, you're like, that bed sucks. Maybe I want to stay somewhere else. Or that beach is crowded, then okay, maybe I want to go somewhere else. If you hear somebody say, oh, it was beautiful, it was really nice, I saw a couple getting married there, you definitely want the beach where people get married. I mean, that's where you want to be. Like if people love it that enough to get married there, then that's a good place to be. So if you have time, and it also kind of pumps you up for your vacation, you get really excited. The first time that I ever really did hardcore research like that was when we did our big Disney trip a few years ago. It was actually in the tail end of COVID. And I did so much research that I was afraid that I ruined the trip for myself. I was like, this is not going to be fun because I saw all the videos and I read all the comments and reviews and I'm afraid we're not going to have fun because I already know what to expect. And it can take away some of the element of surprise. And I will absolutely admit that there is a line between planning and over planning.
Right.
And I've over time learned what that line is to be like, okay, I feel like I have enough information if I'm going to a new place, but then there's also a lot of times where we go places and we're like, wow, I really wish that I would have known that.
Sure.
Or you think for your next travel, okay, I'm going to make sure to look for whatever this is next time. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, when I'm staying in a hotel room, I want to be sure that they don't put us next to the elevator, because if we're next to the elevator or next to a door to a stairwell, there are going to be people coming and going all night long at all hours of the night. Right. And you're going to have to listen to the ding, 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 or slam, slam, slam all night long. So
you also want to make sure that your room is not overlooking the lobby on a very busy weekend that people are up partying until 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
and
that's bad.
We don't get any sleep that weekend either.
Yeah. So, it really does help to read some of these reviews. What I really love to do, though, is to find just the top rated restaurants that might fit with the types of restaurants that you like, or accommodations that are local. Things that, local restaurants are always the best because the food is so good. And plus you're feeding your dollars back into the local economy and you're supporting small business. And that's a really super important thing to do. So like whether you're into bookshops or record stores or liquor stores or museums, boutiques, restaurants, whatever it is that you're into, there's going to be a review for it out there somewhere that will tell you like, this is the place to go. And research is never going to fail you. So Clinton, why don't you talk about how we organize where we go? Because Clinton's come up with some really cool ways for us to organize the places that we put on our list.
And so once you've kind of got an idea of where you want to go, then that's at the point where we either hop over on Pinterest and start making a pin board, just do a search for top 10 things to do in whatever place or best restaurants in this town. Somebody out there has it on Pinterest. And so you can comb through all those searches and find sample itineraries if you are making a road trip or a longer itinerary, or there's plenty of content out there for best weekend in Boston, best weekend in Lexington, Kentucky, or Knoxville or St. Louis, or wherever your destination is. There is 99% sure that there's something out on Pinterest. And then what I like to do is then have a tab open to Google Maps, and I've really, gotten very familiar with the way Google Maps works. And I'll create a list for that specific trip. That way I'll set up kind of our accommodation, drop a pin there, and then local restaurants or, places of interest, and then really start organizing things that way. And if you're planning a road trip, then you kind of get a natural route that starts coming up as you plot pins and you hide all your other 3 million pins so that you see your route start to come up. Or if you're just in a location, then you can see everywhere that you want to go, and you can kind of zero in on a convenient place to stay. Like, oh, well, looks like this neighborhood or, this section of town is kind of central to all the places we want to go. I can narrow my search for accommodation there. And that way you're not having to drive across town. Like Corie said, if you're staying on the perimeter of somewhere, then, you're making a haul in to do your sightseeing or whatever that way. And so that's a really good way that I found to really kind of hone in and find, ideal places and keep track of everything. Because then you have the added benefit of just pulling something up on your list, getting the directions straight from Google, and, you're off and going. And so you're not having to search for places every single time that you get in the car to go explore. Everything's already banked. I try to put them in somewhat of an order, but that's not quite necessary or, really much to do in the list. If you make your own custom map, then you can make own layers, and that's like a whole masterclass.
But though, it's one of the things that we have done before even is that if you know that you're on a road trip and you know where you're going to be around lunchtime, you can pick a cool local spot to go to lunch and just save it to your Google map. You can be like, oh, hey, we know that our halfway point is here. We're going to stop for lunch here. We're going to stop for breakfast here. We're going to stop for dinner here, whatever on our
Or there's
road
a Bucky
trip.
at exit 154.
Oh my God, no. I'm not even going to, no. Peoply. But I do think it's really cool. And Clinton actually just started making these for us the last 2-3 trips that we've taken. And I know that, maybe some of y'all might be thinking that like, well, that really does take the spontaneity out of it. But you know what else it takes out of it is what do you want to eat? What do you feel like? Where do you want to go? Yeah. And it takes that whole...
I don't know. Let's go. Let's look something up and figure out.
Yeah, no. And we do a fair amount of that too. Yeah, or we'll pass by a place and be like, oh, that place looks cool. It gives us a shorter
list to choose from.
Right. Be like, hey, we already remember this place looked cool. Do you want to try that? Or do we want to maybe go to that place that we saw earlier today that we drove by?
Yeah.
And that we do a fair amount of both, but it really does. Like we went to, I think our last trip we went to at least one of the places that we had on our Google map and we loved it. We thought it was great. And then we went to a really cool German restaurant that was right across the parking lot from our Airbnb. That was ridiculous.
Incredibly convenient
so
and
good.
So amazingly good.
Yeah. And that a lot of people on Airbnb had left reviews about how good it was. So I was like, hey, let's check this out. All these people said it was so good. Then we went to a place that was down the street that was not so good, that was not in our plan. So, it happens, but it's definitely worth it to do a little homework ahead of time to just kind of take some of the guesswork out of it. And plus, like I said, all of this planning really does get you excited to go on your trip.
Right.
I'm the type of person that really likes to have something to look forward to all the time. I think that makes life fun and, to get excited about, okay, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Where do we want to eat? What do we want to do? And it really does add a lot of excitement to your trip that extends beyond the trip itself. So I think that's pretty cool. So when we are traveling, once we know where we're going to stay and kind of our reasoning for being there, we like to add in the types of things that we like to do. So for Clinton and me, when we travel in a city, for example, we like to walk around and explore. So let's say we're in a downtown area or wherever we are, we like to just kind of go explore the area. I mentioned before, we like to check out breweries. We like to check out distilleries if we're in a place that has a distillery.
Thrift stores.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is so fun.
Oh, yeah. We did a flea market the last time and it was just like so random, but they had so many cool old albums and cassette tapes, which my sister's a big cassette tape collector. So if she's listening, she knows what she's getting for Christmas. But, we like to shop at little local boutique-y types of shops and just kind of do around. There's a really cool place in Asheville that is like a maker space for local artisans to sell their stuff. I love stuff like that because you're giving money back to the artist. And we found places like that when we were in Texas, and we found pretty much everywhere you go. Actually, I'm kind of thinking back several places we've been to like that, Arizona, New Mexico, where it's like a maker space where you can go and you can
little
find
artist collective, and it's so perfect.
It's great. And you can, give money back to these artists and support their art forms and their little businesses, and then bring home really cool gifts to save for Christmas for your family members or whatever. And that's really cool. So when we get to a place, we typically, if we can, we like to arrive early so that we can explore a little bit before we have to check in.
Yeah.
Unless we're doing like a weekend after we got off work on a Friday and then we're having to drive up on a Friday night, that kind of sucks a little bit. But like, if we're able to get off work a little bit early and head up and maybe, hang out, go get a drink somewhere or hang out and do whatever until it's time to check in, we'll do that. Or maybe make dinner our destination for the first night and, go to our favorite. We really love international food. So we have favorite Cuban places and we have favorite German places and Indian places. And we really do strive to go to places and do things that we can't get at home.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, our town is not Bowling Green. If you're not from Bowling Green is not a humongous place, and it's not terribly far from a couple of humongous places. But I have been known, and I will absolutely admit this out loud, I have planned entire trips around IKEA.
Yes, that is true.
Right down to the hotel that we stay in.
That overlooks IKEA at sunrise. And it was beautiful.
It was beautiful. So I am absolutely known. I am not even afraid to admit that, because there are other IKEA lovers out there.
Yes, there are.
Who are like, heck yeah, let's go spend a day in IKEA. And I will straight up do that and explore every little nook and cranny of that place and bring half of it home in the car. But yes, so I mean, that was my destination that weekend.
That's right.
We went to Memphis, we went to IKEA, we went to the Williams-Sonoma outlet store, and I was like
in heaven,
a pig in slop. I mean, it was the best thing in the whole wide world.
Well, speaking of IKEA, as a total aside, did you see, I don't know if it was a meme or an actual news story that somebody put wayward arrows on the floor.
That's so just mean.
Just kind of like leading you around in circles in a maze of IKEA that you can never exit from. I just thought that was funny.
We IKEA people are too smart to fall for that.
Oh, okay.
Because
because you know how to put the furniture together.
All about form and function. All about form and function. We know which direction to go. We know where we're headed. We IKEA people know exactly where we're headed. So, I mean, on the other hand, and we will discuss this in our next podcast, we'll be camping. And camping for sure, because that's when we kind of were planning this, we were thinking, okay, we've gone to cities, we've gone to small towns, we've gone for, a purpose or not a purpose. And we've explored a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we've done big cities. We've done small cities. From Atlanta to Crossville. I mean, we've done it all of it. And, but what I want people to know is that camping's a little bit different, and that is most certainly Clinton's forte. But I have to say, I've embraced it. You have, to your credit.
Yes.
That makes me very happy.
So our next episode will be about camping for a weekend and how to plan that, because I know there's probably a lot of people out there that have never done this before.
Right.
And I want people to know that you can do this. We've glamped.
We have
slept on the ground in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
We've slept in our car.
Is car camping, which is the most accessible form of camping. And we've also, like you said, we've glamped outside the Grand Canyon. Typically, we do car camping.
But we've stayed in like the little, that little cabin thing that we stayed in that was like a railroad car, whatever what was that? Like a shipping container.
Oh yeah. Like our
I don't know
weird
what it is.
Shipping container stuff.
We stayed in that. I mean, but see, that's the thing. Like you could still go have the benefit of your
camping does not mean like backpack 20 miles into the wilderness.
Although we've done that.
We have done that too.
Not 20 miles because I'm not walking 20 miles, but no.
But so there's all forms of camping, and typically we are of the car camping type and we'll stay in either a state park or an Army Corps of Engineers campsite or like a recreation department campsite somewhere. So typically we tend to do campsites where there's some facilities and amenities available. We haven't quite branched out into overlanding or boondocking just yet, but oh man, that's coming, and I can't wait. I'm kind of ready to do
that though, actually. But I mean, that's our next episode for one.
Yes.
But what I will say about that is that if camping is your bag and that's what you're going to do, then it's very much the same process as everything that we just described as far as choosing where you're going to go and right. Why. Now for us, my prerequisite is
body of water so we can go paddleboarding.
A body of water. And mainly, so I do like the paddleboarding. Yes, that is true. I like the paddleboarding, but really I like to wake up in the morning and just look out over the water and watch the sunset over the water. I just think that's lovely and it brings me peace. So I'm always happy with a body of water whenever we're camping or whenever we go anywhere, period. But beautiful scenery, you know, we've done day trips at waterfalls. Mm-hmm. I really love wildlife and being able to go, like, there were tons of birds at the last place we went, which was so cool. And then really the rest is up to us. Like, we plan really elaborate food when we go to camp. We have a whole little camp kitchen thing that we set up.
Eat as good or better on our camping trips than we do at home most time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of work, but it's also kind of fun. So I don't mind that part. So that'll be our next episode. So you'll have to tune in for episode 3 to learn all about the camping. But I will say, and here's what I want to challenge everybody to do this week. So for our last episode, I don't know if you heard it, but I challenged everybody to make a list of places you've always wanted to go, no matter how small or how big. And this is my challenge for everyone this time, is if you're going to choose a place at random, just choose a random place to go for a weekend. Random. Mm-hmm. Just like pick out a map, close your eyes and point. So choose a place within driving distance. Doesn't matter where. But it can be a city. It can be a small town. It can be camping, whatever it is. And then decide, what is it about that place that you're excited to explore? So Clinton mentioned that, he's really excited to go see a museum exhibit at the incredible art museum in Cincinnati, which is like easily one of my favorite art museums of anywhere I've ever been. It's gorgeous. And base your accommodations and your food and your activities around whatever it is that you're excited to do. So if you don't know what you want to do, ask yourself, what have you always wanted to do? So is it something active you've never done before, like kayaking or trying rock climbing, or like we went on a hike once that was ridiculous. It was so hilly, to hunt arches in Red River Gorge. And it was really cold outside, but it was fine.
So much fun.
It was fun, even though I look miserable in all our pictures because I really was, but it was also actually a lot of fun. But, do you want to go see a show? Do you want to check out architecture? Do you like art? Do you like music? What kind of food have you always wanted to try? What does the place have that you can not get at home? A lot of these places, like if you're going to a town, particularly this time of year, are there any little local festivals going on that you could go check out, the just local life and, stuff going on? I happened to be in New York City once during the Pride Parade, and I was like, this is crazy. It was the first ever parade like that I'd ever seen. And it was a year after 9/11. So it was really amazing. But it's like, I saw a side of New York City that I hadn't intended on seeing. I mean, it wasn't in my plans, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is going on. This is super cool. And it made me appreciate it from a whole nother perspective. So, what is going on while you happen to be somewhere that you could check out that might be a very pleasant surprise or just something fascinating to see or experience. And then what makes the town unique? Go do a little homework and figure out what makes it unique. Like, is it known for railroads, or is it known for, I don't know.
Beer cheese capital of your
state. God, yes. Beer cheese capital. We were talking to our oldest about that the other day, about Winchester, Kentucky has a beer cheese trail. Who knew?
Right. And it's Ale-81. The home of Ale-81.
Oh my God. I mean, who doesn't love Ale-81? If you've never had one, go get one right now. Run, don't walk. But
there's just fun stuff like that in every state, everywhere you go. Totally.
So challenge yourself to pick a place. If you're going to go camping, maybe do you want to go hiking and, put a backpacking somewhere? Do you want to stay at a campground? Do you have a camper you want to take out somewhere? Because that can be a pretty involved process too if you're going to take the camper out. Mm-hmm. What do you need? And what time is check in and check out? I mean, there's lots of things to think about, but I think personally, I think the most important thing when you're deciding where to go is who you're taking with you.
Yeah. Yep.
Because your travel companion, whether it is your spouse or your partner or your children or your parents or your extended family or yourself, can make or break your trip for you. So consider that. And that's all I have to say about that.
And then finally, don't let all this overwhelm you. I know it seems like a lot, and, we're kind of all over the place because we just get excited about traveling and finding a new destination and then what we're going to do when we're there and where we're going to eat. But that's the beauty of planning a trip and, mixing some spontaneity with some pre-planning so that it's not a completely overwhelming process. So take it one step at a time, find your location and then think about what you want to do. And then that'll help hone you in on where you want to stay that's nearby or that's close in proximity to everything that you want to do. And then start thinking about what you want to eat and other, stuff related to that. So definitely don't get overwhelmed. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. But if you break up the planning process over, several days or a week or so, just do a little bit every day, place 1 or 2 or 3 pins, in your Google Maps list, then eventually it'll all come together and it'll make sense. And it'll be a very approachable trip and not one that's overwhelming because, we certainly have learned that you can't do everything in a single trip.
Not even close.
So you may have to be do your top 3 things at this place. And then as you learn more things while you're there, which you inevitably will, then you're okay, well, I got to file that away for the next time we pass through. Or our next trip, we're going to do this end of town, or we're going to explore this park that's nearby. So definitely don't feel like you have to, max out your experience of a single place in one weekend or in one trip.
Yeah, that'll make it exhausting and not fun.
Yeah.
And plus, I mean, that's the thing. We'll make a list of places we want to try or places we want to go, but by no means do we ever hit them all.
Yeah.
And it's very rarely have ever been disappointed that we didn't make it somewhere.
Yeah. I
think maybe the one time was in Cincinnati that I did not get to go see that baby hippo. But we all got sick and we had to go home early. But I was like, man, we're not going to be up here for a while and I'm not going to get to see that hippo. And I really wanted to see that baby.
Yeah.
But, so one of the things that will help is that we are going to post this list, this little, list of questions for you and to kind of prompt you to discover your next destination. If that would be helpful for you, you can feel free to visit our Facebook page and you can find this list, probably a Google Doc or something that you could download and put in your own Google or put in your own Microsoft Word or whatever you like. But we'll post this for you so that you can have this as a resource. And then also feel free to ask us questions. We are on Facebook and we're on Instagram and YouTube now. So absolutely feel free to ask specific questions that maybe we can address how we handled certain things or make some suggestions of where to look for certain things or even destinations that you might be interested in. We've traveled, certainly we haven't traveled the entire state of Kentucky where we live, for those of you that are in Kentucky, but
we sure have been to a lot of it.
We've been to a lot of it. And but if we haven't been there, we know people who have. I mean, we have friends that have been to every single county. We know people that have had a lot of really cool experiences. And we also want to hear about your experiences because we like to travel too. And so we love to learn from the people around us. the places that are fun and experiences that are cool. So please share with us, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So with that, you can find us on the social medias. We're usually some form of @SoWhereToNext_podcast on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And we look forward to connecting with you guys. Like Corie said, we will get just as much inspiration from y'all as you get from us, hopefully.
1,000%. Yeah.
And we really envision this as a conversation and just kind of like sitting around the kitchen table, kind of like we are now, just talking about travel.
Drinking some bourbon, talking about where we're going next.
That's right. So where to next?
Where to next, Clinton?